Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome to Bada Boom. I'm Troy, and today we're going to be talking about Captain America Brave New World. And to be honest, I'm a little mixed about how I feel about this movie. But before we dive in, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. So, before I started to see this movie, I saw tons of reviews coming out, and the one that I really paid attention to, even though I probably shouldn't, is the Rotten Tomato score. And they rated this with 50%, which for me is less than an okay movie. I think an okay movie probably scores somewhere in the high 60s, low 70s. So this kind of got me confused. I thought Marvel was kind of back after Deadpool and the Wolverine, but now I'm like, what's even going on at Marvel? So let's dive in and let's talk about my thoughts and feelings with Captain America Brave New World. So, first off, we don't even get the title sequence of Marvel where we see like a montage and then Marvel Studios. They opted for like a black and white Marvel Studios, just like it looks like it's shot in film, which is fine because I get this supposed to be like a spy kind of thriller thing. But without that title sequence, it just doesn't feel like it's really a Marvel movie. It's like, oh, it's a side project. We don't really care about this. We don't consider it part of the main MCU. That's what it felt like. So it just didn't start off on a good note, period. So from there, we kind of dive into what I think was probably the strongest part of the movie, which was the opening. And we get a really good opening scene with Sam and Joaquin taking out a hit squad of Sidewinder and, recovering the later to be known stolen adamantium. And that was a good action scene. It was a really good introduction and a really good scene to be like, hey, this is how Sam is being the new Captain America. This is his fight style. I did think there were parts of this fight that were like a little weak because he's still human, and like I guess they're trying to emphasize that, but I think they could have still been like, hey, look, like he's a badass, and they kind of did, but they kind of made him fight for it, made him work for it. Fine. And it's still a great scene when they introduce Isaiah and he is, a badass. And they're like, yeah, I train Sam and I'm going to train Joaquin. And pretty much everything leading up into the attempted murder of President Ross, that's pretty solid. But then the movie kind of starts to go downhill. I feel like we had a really solid premise, a really solid opening. And then we were like, okay, we got to fill in a couple of points, a couple of talking points. And it was just like, I don't really know how we're going to go about doing this. Because there's so many scenes where, like, oh, we should have this with one character. We should have a talking scene with Sam and Joaquin. We should have another talking scene with him and Isaiah. We should have a cameo of Bucky. We should have him doing some one-on-ones with Thunderbolt Ross. And then it's just kind of like, we had a whole bunch of Lego pieces that had to fit together, but we didn't really have a good set of instructions, so we kind of just pieced everything together to be what we thought it should be. And it just didn't land well. And not that like these scenes are bad, because if you just take these scenes on their own, they seem pretty solid, but they don't really translate into, I think, like being a cohesive movie. We jump around at different times, and not necessarily like in a timeline, but mostly in tone. We jump around in tone because Anthony Mackie was kind of like the comic relief and kind of he was the sidekick, and now it's like you're the main character, but I don't feel like they've really written him to be the main character. And he has some really great, strong moments in this movie. He has some really good talking points with Harrison Ford's character, and has some really good emotional connection, I think, in this movie. But we just switch from some scenes to the other scenes so fast that it's like, what are we doing? Like, we're just jumping around. It doesn't feel very cohesive. And then again, on top of that, Disney, you are worth billions of dollars, and some of these scenes look really cheap. Like, it looks like you just went down to the studio and said, hey, build this in like 5 minutes, and we're going to have red lights, gray and black boxes. Like, the quality of some of these sets don't look very good. And we also were using this piece of technology, it seems like, for probably reshoots, but it just makes everything stand out so poorly. this piece of technology was made or used mostly in The Mandalorian. It's kind of like a giant LED screen where they will put the background on it and then people act out in front of it. And in The Mandalorian, they use this mostly for like the sky, some of the backgrounds, but still the majority of the set is physically there. And they use it a lot in Ant-Man, and it was really distracting. It really pulls you out of the movie. And in this, they used it quite a bit in scenes that I'm guessing were reshoots. And I think we just need to get away from that technology as a whole. Like, what was wrong with blue screening so many different things in the Avengers? Because that stuff still looks great, but when you put this stuff up on this screen and you act out in front of it, like, your characters stand out so much. And I get there are some scenes where it's tough, like when you're on Antimantium Island or Celestial Island, whatever they're calling it. It's tough to kind of do a blue screen of that when you don't have, I guess, like the actual photo of it. And you kind of just need that for acting. I guess that's fine. And those scenes I actually didn't really mind too much. Like, that's not really is what drawing me out for this. What's really making me be like, hey, we've got to stop using this is there's a scene where they're clearly in a physical location and then they interview Sidewinder and he's off on his own. And then you can definitely just feel like they're so far separated from reality because of the screen. And then they go back and they're in another physical location on the same scene and it's back to normal. So this definitely just feels like it was like a reshoot. We got to throw a little something in here. And the quality just diminishes. It pulls you out of the movie so much. It makes the narrative feel a little bit more flat because you know it's a reshoot. And you're like, oh, we know something didn't work here. Why is it doing this? And Disney, like, you've got the money. Maybe it's a time. Maybe it's like those sets or places weren't available. Okay, fine. But you could have found a more clever way to do this. And then on top of that, like, the leader doesn't really look that good. Like, I'm thinking of the leader from comics, from animated TV shows, from Marvel Snap. Like, he's got a pretty big head. And this, they just kind of made his brain be a little bit like on the outside. Like, it doesn't really look that good. And like, you didn't have to go like crazy hard with making his brain be all the way out there, like how some characters in Invincible are. But it still needs to look, just make his head be a little bit bigger, add like a prosthetic head. So I don't know. It didn't really click for me. And the leader just doesn't really seem like he's that compelling of a villain. Like, he gets kind of little screen time, kind of on purpose. And we're really trying to have, I guess, Thunderbolt Ross, Red Hulk be the villain. But at the end of the day, it's like, do we even really have a villain? Because, yeah, Sam discovers and is developed as Captain America, and the leader is trying to, start a war, get back at Ross. And then the Ross is like, hey, I'm done being president. I'm done being Red Hulk. I don't want to be Red Hulk at all. I don't want that to be let out of me. And that's it. Like, there's not really a villain. This is really open and shut. The only thing we really get to kind of be like, oh, what can we look forward to, is the fact that the leader hints that there's other realities. And that's just really it. And the premise of this movie from the teasers we got kind of seemed like we're going to rebuild the Avengers. And honestly, that would have been a way better movie, I think, than what we kind of got. Because, and I've seen this in a review, and I 100% agree with this after seeing this movie, this is really just The Incredible Hulk 2, but we can't have an Incredible Hulk movie, so we had to do it through this. And I think there was a more clever way to do it this way. We didn't have to have the leader be in prison the entire time. We could have had the leader, poison Thaddeus Ross in some way, or we could have introduced a lot more of the Hulk characters in this movie, or had She-Hulk appear. I don't know. Have some sort of other Hulks than just the Red Hulk to kind of explain what's going on. And have Red Hulk show up early and be a part of the solution to the problem. But I also understand, like, Red Hulk's the entire problem. But he's just painted and dressed up in a way that he doesn't really seem like he's a problem. And besides, people want a Red Hulk. They want a Hulk that's going to destroy stuff. Because Smart Hulk, okay, fine. She-Hulk, I actually like the show, but we all know and love a Hulk that is gonna smash stuff. That's gonna be a problem. That's one of the best scenes probably in Age of Ultron, and that's what was one of the best things about being hyped for Avengers is we're gonna see Hulk go crazy, and that's one of the things we love about the Hulk movies is Hulk goes crazy, he destroys stuff, and has that little arc of like I gotta calm down, I gotta chill. So we want to see Hulk smash stuff, and for it to be like that's the problem was well, I guess that's the best part of the movie, but then everything else kind of falls flat. And in the comics, Red Hulk has his mind. He's conscious. And I guess Red Hulk was kind of conscious in this movie. But, like, he can talk, he can say things, he can be intelligent, have conversations. And they don't really let him do that in this movie. It was kind of just like, hey, we need to introduce some characters. And that's it. I think there was a lot more opportunity for us to do more of this movie. We could have lent more to rebuilding the Avengers. We really kind of just say, hey, let's toss this up there to get Sam interested in working with the president, Thunderbolt Ross. And instead, it's like, it's a big misdirect because you're just really going to be fighting the leader in Red Hulk the entire time. It just doesn't feel like it's a fun movie per se. There's some fun moments because of how great of an actor Anthony Mackie is, and Harrison Ford does a great job. But again, just because of the weird set designs, the technology that was used to film this movie, and then the scenes that are good are kind of just like copy and pasted into certain parts of the movie because they're like, we filmed them, we got to have them. It just doesn't feel like it really lands. Like, there's his cameo happens, I think maybe like 60%, maybe 70% of the way through the movie. And it's a well-placed cameo, but I think we could have maybe put it a little bit earlier in the movie. I don't know. It's just, the pacing feels off. The scenes that are great are definitely great, but then the rest of the movie is kind of lacking. The whole plot of it just like doesn't really land. There's some comic relief that isn't really, I guess, needed. Sam jokes all the time about not having the super serum, but he also has like a heartfelt moment where he's like, I guess I don't need it and I shouldn't need it. I don't know. And maybe that's kind of done on purpose because we don't have the Avengers in this movie. We're not rebuilding the Avengers at all. I guess maybe they're trying to tee up the Thunderbolts to be like, hey, they're going to be the new Avengers, but not really because they kind of suck. Allegedly, that's kind of the vibe they're giving off based on all the previews. And I have higher hopes for that movie because that seems like their version of the Suicide Squad. And, that's going to be fun, but also kind of intense and dark maybe at times. So I don't know. But ultimately, overall, this movie, I think, is pretty deserving of this 50% Rotten Tomato score because it's just like, why? Why do we need certain things in this movie? Why are things in this order of events? Why is the set so bad at times? Why couldn't we have a better leader in the show, the character of the movie? There's just so many whys. It's like, how did we get here? Someone had to say, sure, I just don't care anymore. Or, yeah, that's fine with me. Because there's just so many things that don't really make sense, and we can ask why over and over, and we just don't get an answer. So for me, that 50% Rotten Tomatoes score is pretty accurate. I think there's plenty of things that they could have done differently, of course. But the one thing I am excited about, because I do like the Hulk family, is that we got Betty Ross back in this. And while there's not, in my perspective, a ton of comics that have Betty Ross as Red She-Hulk, the fact that she's back in the MCU and has made an appearance is enough for me to get excited that, hey, we're going to have some more Hulks, and maybe we can do, I don't want a Hulk TV show, but maybe we can do a Hulk movie. We've got Scar, we've got Hulk, we've got Red Hulk. We could get A-Bomb, we've got She-Hulk, maybe we'll get Red She-Hulk. There's potential, but also with that potential is a bit of caution because we got a lot of players in this movie and it didn't turn out well. And we just need to say, hey, let's just write a good story. It doesn't matter who's in it. Let's not plug and play too many things just because we can. Let's write a good story and go from there. Because I think this movie potentially was going to be a really cool spy espionage movie. And then it just kind of fell apart and said, well, we don't really want to do that anymore. I think we could have had the leader not be in prison, be the big brain behind things, pulling the strings, and then at the end had a cliffhanger about what's happening with Red Hulk. But Marvel had different ideas, and they have other stuff going on that we obviously don't know about. So hopefully we can look back on this movie and say, I get why you did that. I understand that. Maybe we can look back on this movie and see it a little bit more favorably. But for now, 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, I think is pretty accurate, and that's where I'm at as well. But what about you guys? Did you guys like Captain America Brave New World? Do you think Anthony Mackie delivered a great performance? I think he had some really great scenes and did great. But what do you guys think? Let us know what you think in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And with that, bada boom!